story is about the power of connection and how important that is. And the idea of two people who may actually be in the last minutes of their lives having to make a decision to find common ground with somebody they don't want to find common ground with, because that may be the only human connection they ever experience. And I think we take humanity for granted. I genuinely do. And because I have this other job where I work in the media and I'm a columnist and I write about social conflict and, you know, these points of division that we experience as a society, and I spend all my life on the internet where just everybody just yells at one another all the time, it's very easy to get this impression and to sort of even identify within this impression that we define ourselves in opposition, that we must be competitive and combative and my team against yours, my side against yours, my politics versus your politics. You know, those kind of dynamics are really toxic. And we're seeing like a broader tension in a lot of communities where, because social media has just ratcheted up the tensions between people, the tensions around difference, some people are really struggling to have a conversation about similarity. And I think particularly in the wake of lockdown as well, we were isolated from one another. A lot of people forgot their social skills or didn't develop them, or had this sort of strange experience at the core of a really important part of their lives. It's really important to remind people that finding common ground with the people who you think are not like you is actually the point of being human. We're different for a reason. We're different because our differences are what have enabled humanity to grow and to thrive and to look after one another and build communities and deal with challenges and survive floods and plagues and everything else. It's not just that collaboration is important, but it's recognising that the different insights and the different skills and the different tastes and the different aesthetics and the different experiences that we bring to one another is actually what continues our survival. Which sounds pretty esoteric. It's like, come on, Van, you're writing a musical. But it's like, no, it's important that people learn to talk to one another, and it's important that people are reminded about the power of showing vulnerability to other people and admitting you don't have all the answers, or being aware of your mistakes, and the power of relationships with anybody, whether it's a romantic relationship, a friendship or a partnership or any of those things, is about allowing ourselves to learn from one another and to change and to grow. And that's an offer, and that's also a receipt. You know, it's an ongoing dynamic process. And we invented the theatre as a way of having those conversations, of taking them out of uncomfortable social situations, putting them on a stage so we could model behaviour to one another about how to have a conversation, you know, how to build intimacy with people, how to deal with conflict in, you know, productive ways, or to offer warnings about dealing with conflict in negative ways. Like, that's actually the function of these stories that we tell one another. It gives us a safe place to have feelings. And there's something really beautiful about our experience in the question, which is stripping the musical theatre format down to just two people in one scenario on this stage having essentially a conversation that takes place over the course of a developing relationship and goes in different directions. The two characters are very different at the end of the show than they were at the beginning of the show, because they have obliged themselves to listen to one another and connect and accept their differences, and also to become invested in the development of the other one's strengths. And I think that's a lovely story for Richard and I as well, because we're older now, and you know, we've done the dating thing, and with, you know, other people as well. Not to divulge complicated and personal histories, but we're both settled now. We're both in very, very secure relationships. I'm married, he's about to get married. And marriage does affect, you become very reflective about what's led you to make that commitment to another person, what that commitment means as you approach old age and death together, like how you negotiate a household when you're in a relationship, and really thinking about those very core values of why are we together, what brought us together, what will keep us together, what does the future look like, what will the end look like. I mean, they're big questions around, how do we communicate to one another? I mean, I think all of us have seen, and it doesn't even matter how old you are, you've seen good relationships and you've seen bad relationships. There's a wonderful quote from the American director Hal Hartley in one of his movies, which is, a family's like a loaded gun. You point it in a wrong direction, you're going to kill somebody. And it's such a great quote, because these fundamental sort of exchanges, how you build a household, how you build a family, how you build a relationship, they're all held together by conversations. All of those relationships are held together with conversations. And the sort of wisdom that you get as you get older that leads you into permanence, finality, I mean, they're confronting, but they're important. And humanity, as long as we exist, we're always going to be talking about them. And I think, the experience as well, like I heard about this original story about the couple on the blind date in China, where they knew instantly it wasn't going to happen, and yet we're trapped in this apartment on this interminable blood. They had no idea where it was going to end. I think I sort of extrapolated from that, going, well, I've been through these really full-on personal circumstances over the past few years. I'm of that age now. My mother has recently died. My father died not long before that, and saying goodbye and trying to sort of understand, what does the moment I live in mean, and what is valuable? Like, if we strip everything away, if we get back to just those two people in a room, what do we mean to one another, and how do we find beauty in the limitations of our circumstances? How do we find meaning and purpose when we're trapped inside? And I mean, I lived in Victoria during lockdown, I didn't go outside for months. Like, what do all of those things mean? I'm grappling with it as much as anybody else is, but we create songs and poems and stories and plays in order to communicate the things that we learn in our experience to the people around us and to the people who come after us as well, to remind people that this is an ongoing human story.